There is so many people that misunderstand the Big Mom versus Law and Kid fight. I'm going to do the best of my abilities to break it down to you in the most simplest of terms, break down every single interaction and tell you exactly how this all impacts scaling throughout the verse. Quickly, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys that have helped us get to 10,000 subscribers. Big milestone, and I really appreciate everybody that subscribes to the channel. That said, let's try to hit 150 likes on this video and keep the momentum going. So the first interaction we see is when Big Mom is obviously chasing after Usopp and Nami after taking care of like Page 1 and Ulti, right? She strikes down with her sword, and she is using Prometheus on the sword here. Now, with that said, of course, the strike is meant for Usopp and Nami, but Kid ends up intercepting this sword strike with his metal arm. He grabs the sword, and then basically this is super weird because he's clearly got hold of the sword and he doesn't have another metal arm at this point. He moves from the sword to grabbing her forehead really quickly. Now, Big Mom's clearly taken by surprise by this. You can't see her face when she's loading up the attack initially. It seems like she's just enraged and pissed off, and she's not really looking at what she's striking. She also wouldn't be expecting anybody on this floor to be able to block her strike. That's why she's visibly confused. That's why there's a question mark there. And then before she can realize what's even happening, Kid quickly moves from the sword to her head and puts her in the ground. She shakes this off pretty easily though, and Kid says, "Get lost, Straw Hats, she's mine." We then see Nami, Usopp, and Otama running away, and it looks as if Kid now has created another metal arm to match his left. So now he has two metal arms. It seems that some time did pass, albeit it's going to be impossible to tell how much time. It'd be basically just conjecture to presuppose that they continued fighting. This, for all we know, could just be right after the events of when he put her on the ground. He just built up another arm. Law at this point walks up. Kid senses him and says, "Don't tell me you're here to mess with my fight." Law says, "Grow up, Eustace. Let's form a temporary alliance." Now, don't forget, at this point, everybody in this fight has some battle damage to some degree, but Law specifically took, conch-coated Bagua from Kaido right before this. Then you have the whole plot line with Killer and Hawkins, where Hawkins is getting pressed by Killer, and eventually it gets down to the life of Kid that he is using to preserve himself. So Killer goes to strike Hawkins down, he stabs him, and we see that right at this moment, Kid falls to his knees. So it did a massive amount of damage to him. At this point, we're told by Hawkins he only has a few lives left, but the real question is, whose lives are they? And of course, it's revealed that it was Kid's life. That's why he had the effects. Law looks over at Kid and says, "What's gotten into you? What's wrong, Eustace?" He starts visibly bleeding from his mouth, his chest, and it pours even more so out where the wounds start to build up. He's now bleeding all over the place. Hawkins says, "It would have been satisfying to allow you to kill Kid yourself without realizing what you've done, but then I decided it would be more entertaining to tell you and watch you struggle to attack me." So Hawkins basically just fumbled the bag, because if he didn't say anything, Kid would have just literally just been killed. So this is his own fucking fault, but he's in a bad spot anyway because he knows Killer's way stronger than him. So he probably did this because this was his only option. He has to make him stop fighting, because if Killer didn't know, he just cut right through him, end Kid's life, and then move on to the next life without even knowing. Right? That's why he says the only way you can finish me off is by personally killing your own captain. Now you actually see that Hawkins is not only taking Killer's damage, but he's actually inflicting damage upon himself, which is further hurting Kid. Law doesn't understand what's happening, saying, "What's wrong with you? You're useless right now, useless Captain Kid." And this is basically completely destroying Kid in this fight with Big Mom. He cannot fight. He's completely nerfed. He's held down. His body is super heavy, as he mentions. But Law basically has to try to continue fighting with Big Mom. Despite this, she is loading up an attack to finish off Kid. She combines Hera and Napoleon for this strike, and Law basically tries to jump in and save the day. Uses Shambles, counter shock, and hits Big Mom. Now Big Mom, again, her battle IQ is like amongst the lowest in the series, so she gets caught off guard regularly. And it doesn't matter how many times it happens, she'll still be susceptible. So she gets caught off guard again in a situation where she's focused on something else. Then Law jumps up and does his attack. So it's not really a feat again by this metric. But even with this, Prometheus then basically kind of does the same thing to Law, where Law's mid-attacking Big Mom. Prometheus rushes to him when Law's in the air. And Prometheus does get to Law before he can teleport out. But again, I'm not going to say, Prometheus has to be faster than Law. Law was mid-attack, and then Prometheus went into motion and was able to land on Law. Big Mom then, no joke, does a fucking 360 mid-air and slams her fucking sword down on Kid while he's being held down by his body because of the Hawkins Killer situation. He's visibly grabbing his head. You see him on the ground. He's helpless, and he gets slammed by this Mama Raid. You then see both Kid and Law on the ground. Big Mom at this point basically has them dead to rights, and she seems to stop. Kid thinks about the headache. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. He's saying, I finally reached the 4 Emperors. If I die now, what was the point of my whole career? Big Mom is just now laughing at them, saying, you're funny, Kid. It looks like you might die all on your own. I don't have to do a thing. So she eases up foolishly. This, of course, is when you see that Killer finally resolves himself to be able to figure out a way to beat Hawkins, and he targets the missing arm that Kid does not have. This is a kind of cop-out, but, you know, it worked. So he targeted that missing arm, and he was able to get rid of the life and then finish off Hawkins subsequently. At that point, you see clear distinction that Kid's body feels so much lighter now, and now he is back to full fighting form. What I liked from Killer is that he was willing to sacrifice his own life to save Kid. Killer's an underrated character. With this, Big Mom acknowledges that Kid is also in much greater spirits now. What's going on? Instead of just going and doubling down and finishing them off, she decided to mock them, laugh at them, and observe them, which really is just, you know, plot contrivances, but it is what it is. But after this, you see that we cut away for a while. We come back and she's using Ikkoku Sovereignty, which decimates Kid, and we see that this hit because he's reeling in the air and she's prepared to hit him with another attack. And right at this moment, this sets up Law for K-Room. She's completely focused on Kid, even mentions, let's start with the first one. Doesn't have any awareness to the fact that Law has now moved behind her and is setting up for his awakened attack, which he spoke about with Kid, saying that the stamina consumption is extreme because he's still not used to it. Kid said the same was true for him. We're not getting anywhere like this. They have to use their last resort. So Law uses K-Room anesthesia. It's able to stab through Big Mom. The penetration does nothing on its own. Instead, K-Room creates a shockwave from the inside and does a significant amount of damage to her, where Big Mom starts visibly bleeding from her mouth. Now, one thing I wanted to point out with the Ikkoku Sovereignty is that base fucking Luffy was able to dodge the same Ikkoku Sovereignty before even going to the rooftop. Not the best look for Kid. He did endure a lot of damage, but theoretically, he should have been more resolved in this moment. This is not the best look, especially for Kid's reaction timing. With this, as soon as Big Mom was caught off guard by the anesthesia and she's reeling from that attack, Kid used that to his advantage to rush over to Big Mom and use a sign. Now, a sign doesn't have to make physical contact. Some people believe it does. It doesn't. We've seen this numerous times. He just has to be within a specific range. We don't know the specific range, but we do know he has to be relatively close to aim it properly and to land. This is something that's established both times he uses it, so it's not a situation where the narrative tells us that he can use it from any range. In this case, he just assigns Big Mom, which gives her a magnetic effect, which draws forth all this rubble and it compounds onto her. Her own sword even stuck to her body. She turned into a magnet. Then you see visibly that when this takes place, Kid is within the range to where he would get crushed as well. Law saves him. He asks him specifically to get him out of there, and Law does get him out of there. So this is not something that he really can do because Kid would still, of course, be hit by these things coming in as well. Something that people have to understand. This is called Punk Clash, though. They say even Big Mom couldn't have survived that. Kid and Law are now visibly exhausted, huffing and puffing, wheezing, but Big Mom shakes this off. She emerges from the rubble. As Kid says, how do you like that, you old monstrous hag? And Law says, so this is the awakening for the Magna Fruit. It allows you to assign magnetic qualities to something, huh? How long does the power hold? Kid never gives us an answer for this. Doesn't want to disclose his secrets to Law. It's important to note at this point, the power has stopped. So it clearly isn't very long. It's just kind of a one-time deal where it's like, hey, I'm going to make you a magnet. Everything's going to smash into you. I got to hold it together for the things to collapse on you. But then you saw how taxed Kid's body was from using this. It's not something that can be prolonged. It takes a ton for him to do this. So it's immediately dropped by the time that she's emerging out of the rubble and by the time that their conversation stops. As Big Mom emerges, she says life or Oshiruku. The fodder around start getting their souls taken. They're screaming. Oh no, this is their soul pocus. They're terrified. She takes a lot of lifespan here and gives life to the rubble that she was just attacked with and turns the metal into her homies. She also sacrifices an entire year of her lifespan to strengthen her. Now, we don't know how much this strengthens her. It's unquantifiable, but we can say it is significant. Although it's, again, hard to say how much because she fights the same opponents, basically gets the same feats, but we'll continue on. So she's gotten bigger. She says, I haven't felt this much pain in decades, I think. That's impressive. I'm sure you've come for my throne just like Straw Hat Luffy. So take it if you can. Prove if you're worthy of being an Emperor of the Sea. Now, what you got to understand is that basically every encounter where she's taken damage here has been an off guard, which compounds damage as you see in One Piece, but also It speaks to the fact that there hasn't been anything landed on her to this point that was clean. Like, nothing was clean, like a legitimate feat. Law says, can't believe I have to beat this monster just so I can learn more about history, which is pretty funny. Kid says, don't hold back any strength as long as you are still alive. We're gonna bring her down even if it kills us. We cut away for a while, we come back, and Big Mom has essentially off-screen these two. She's defeated them when they said they were going all out. They're both incapacitated on the ground, and Big Mom pulls up yet again, eases up. This is now the second time she's had them beaten, because the men are crying out, Law and Kid's men that is, they're pitying them. She's mocking them again. She says, listen to your men pitying you. Must make you feel pretty pathetic, boys. She laughs, and then she turns her attention completely toward the fodder, who she is attacking with her God of Lightning Tenjin attack. She starts attacking these crews, completely diverts her attention away from Law and Kid, who are in and out of consciousness, if that. Starts making her way to the rooftop, and she says, I've yet to hear the roar of victory from Kaido up above. You'd better not still be up there playing patty cake with Straw Hat. She then tells Hera to take her up to the roof, but notably, she says, even I'm getting tired now. She gets prepared to go to the roof, but of course, Law, who's on the ground at this point, uses this as another advantage to land his K-Room once more, and another anesthesia, Shock Willie to her dome. But the big point of emphasis here that I want to make note of that so many people get wrong, and it is super important, this penetration goes through her arm first, notably her right arm. Make a mental note right now. Law goes on to say, I know the last one had an effect. Penetration doesn't hurt, but the real pain is from Shock Willie, which is what, you know, he obviously said earlier. Kid then is still able to magnetize even the homie metal pieces. Big Mom is surprised the Kid is still standing. He turns these metal pieces into the giant bowl. Kid then says, I'm guessing Kaido's nearly done up there. Even water droplets can carve stone given enough time. So there's a couple ways to interpret this. Option one is that Kid is simply talking about Kaido here being the stone, and then everybody that attacked Kaido throughout the entire war to this point were the water droplets culminating with Luffy. So even water droplets can carve into stone after time. He obviously doesn't know how strong Luffy is at this point either. If you take that interpretation, it'd basically be like Kid is saying that Kaido is more durable than Big Mom. He's even more of a challenge to get through, which you can kind of reinforce that option with the fact that it's kind of in the context of them trying desperately to stop Big Mom from getting back to the roof to potentially help Kaido. Now, option two is that he's talking about Big Mom as well here, because he talked about with Law earlier that nothing they were doing was working. They were gonna have to go all out. They were gonna have to use their awakenings. They weren't getting any traction. And if you take that interpretation, it's basically like a full self-admission that they don't stand a chance against Big Mom. Like, he's basically comparing himself to the water droplets. Him and Law are the water droplets that are carving into the stone. They're carving into Big Mom. And the funny thing about this is that they are fucking doing this to a Big Mom that is the lowest battle IQ person in the fucking verse, who continues to divert her attention, continues to ease up despite seeing it backfire time and time and time again. So he uses Punk Cornadia. Now, the reason I made you take that mental note is because Big Mom tries to protect against this Cornadia with her right arm, the same arm that the Shock Willie went through. And she gets back to her feet, and take clear note of the dialogue here. The fighters say, look at Big Mom's arm. They say, look at Big Mom's arm. She then responds to this, says, a shockwave from the inside. Feels like I cracked some ribs too. Gotta watch out for Law's attacks. They are dangerous. No mention whatsoever of Kid's bull. No mention of the fucking giant scrap metal that ran into her. The shockwaves weakened her bones. So her bones got weakened in that moment, especially given that that's literally the point of entry from the damn sword where the shockwave channels through, and that's what she tried to defend the Cornadia with. The force that hits is hitting a weakened bone. So the arm is damaged by Law, setting up the stage for Kid's attack to displace it. This is Law's feat. I want to make that crystal fucking clear that Law is the one that damaged her fucking bones, put them in a state that allowed for her to get overpowered by something that would not normally fucking happen. This needs to be crystal clear. Big Mom believes this. Big Mom specifically highlighting that attack. There's no mention of Kid. Law also basically says this. Kid, after he used that attack, says that's got to be hurting the old hag now. And Law screams at him and says, hey, Eustace, this is the second time you've done that. You just had to do your big fancy attack right after mine to make it look like you were the one that did it. You were the winner. I'm not your opening act. Kid's in like, who cares about that right now, which is facts, but still, if you really think so, then you go first next time, says Law. Put a real big hurt on her, then I can finish the job. He put the real big hurt on her, and then Kid comes in and can capitalize on a weakened bone Big Mom who's susceptible to these attacks in her most vulnerable state in that moment. It's a great strategy. I'm not trying to disparage Kid in any way. I'm just trying to tell you the facts that no, Kid did not have the force to fucking overpower and break Big Mom's bone. That was never the fucking case, never the scenario. It was clearly a bone weakened by the shock wave. It says, don't tell me what to do. The ultimate attack I've got up my sleeve is one that'll end that hag. Foreshadowing. Law says, oh yeah, what comes after the bull, a hippo, an elephant? Big Mom at this point then does something to heal. And now there's another misconception that Big Mom can regenerate. That's not what she actually did. She turns her bones into homies. She actually gives life to her bones, and that is how they get back into place. It's not as if she just has a regenerative factor. She turned her bones into homies so they can move on their own, have a mind of their own, get back into place, right? This is only possible if she has the adequate souls to use. Law says, I'm going to be honest with you, no jokes. The next round's going to be the last one from me. I won't have any strength after my next attack, but I guarantee you I won't miss. So I need you to, and Kid cuts him off. I just told you not to give me orders. But in that moment, of course, Big Mom's already on the offensive. She uses Prometheus, Napoleon, and Hera. She combines them in a Mazer Saber, cuts through Kid's metal, the bull. You can visibly see that neither Law or Kid react to the slash. They're both sitting on the bull, but it doesn't hit them because she cut through the middle of it. Law then teleports away off screen, and Kid jumps off the bull toward Big Mom while she's finishing up her swing, and it ends on the other side. As he jumps toward her, this is the second time he uses the assign. Kid even says that this is nothing but scrap to begin with, so it tells you he's not putting hockey on these fucking metal pieces. Big Mom gets into a speech about reigning as Emperors of the Seas for decades, her and Kaido, and she's giving that big monologue as Kid was in attack mode, jumping off the bull, and he uses assign once more. He assigns her head with the north and assigns the south pole to this building, this tower thing. You can see the window on it. Now, the thing is, this, again, you're going to be picking through bones to try to actually get legitimate feats for Kid or Law against Big Mom from a speed standpoint, a relativity standpoint, any kind of capacity. This could be argued to be Kid getting a decent feat. Like, she sees him jump off, she sees him coming, but he uses the sign, but he doesn't have to physically touch her, so it's a different kind of speed, it's a different kind of range. Also, she's like mid-swing, as I was saying, and then monologuing about something else. She doesn't really have any reason to fear Kid rushing toward her. So she gets her head assigned, and it gets slammed into that tower. Now, this is the thing. Big Mom can still move when she's assigned. Okay, the bull is closing down towards her. Kid sewed it up and sent it down toward her, and she's able to literally flip this building with raw strength to block off the attack of the bull. She's able to move her arms throughout this whole thing, so it's only specific points that are magnetized. She got magnetized to a piece, so Kid can use his awakening in multiple ways. One way is he can just assign you as the magnet, and everything in the nearby area will be attracted to you, or he can apply you to another point and magnetize those 2 points. Again, he has to be within a specific range to do this, and it seems that it's confined to a specific point on your body. So in this case, it was Big Mom's head. That's why the rest of her body parts, she has no problem moving. That's why she could flip the building. Her head was just stuck to the tower, and he can only do this for a very, very limited period of time, which exhausts his stamina to the nth degree. She says, why would you put this heavy weight on my back, and prepares to attack Kid once more. She's about to use Mother's Visit Cannon, 3,000 Leagues of Misery, and she sends Misery at Kid. Kid reacts to Misery. He dodges Misery, like this is his best feat. He dodges Misery, but the question is, like, is that scaling to her physical speed? We really don't know. So he dodges the initial attack. We don't really get to see what happens in the subsequent attack. We can't see Kid anymore, so I don't know if he was hit or not, so that's kind of up for interpretation. Her reaction seems to assume like she's laughing really hard, like the fighter's getting hit, but we don't know if Kid got hit, in fairness. But while she's doing that, look at what happens again. She falls forward again, gets hit with another off-guard attack from Law. Attack this time he drops like this giant fucking piece of building on her, slams into her as she was sending Misery out. So this hits. It looks as if Kid took some damage, so I think I'm gonna just assume that he got hit with the Misery barrage at some point. We don't really get to see it, but Law then uses this as advantage after using tact, uses K-Room once more, stabs into Big Mom, and uses Puncture Willy. It connects all the way from Onigashima down to the mainland of Wano, which is pretty fucking crazy. At this point, Big Mom starts punching and pounding on Law while he's stabbing through her. Now, this is Law's most impressive showing, in my opinion, because she's visibly using hockey there. Now, what kind of hockey is she using? ambiguous. Doesn't seem like she used advanced conquerors throughout any of this fight, but she is using Elise arm and haki here. She's slamming into Law as he continues to go deeper with Puncture Willie into the mainland of Onigashima. He endures all these barrages of punches, stays conscious, and uncorks his most violent attack to date, which does massive amounts of damage to Big Mom. A giant hole was actually created from the shockwave, from the force. At that point, you see Big Mom is basically like right in front of the hole. She's like about to fall into it, but she's clinging on as Misery gets prepared to attack Law. At this point, as Law did the setup this time, he says, "Now do it, Eustace," as Eustace has his railgun ready to go. As Big Mom, despite taking that Puncture Willie, has her fighting spirit and says, "Give me all you got. You think you can beat me? I'm Big Mom." As Kid uncorks Damn Punk, which slams into Big Mom. Law says, "Your era is over." Big Mom is literally inside this hole now. Okay, mind you, this giant hole that was created from the Puncture Willie and everything. He is shooting her into the hole. Yet Big Mom is taking this fucking attack. It's doing damage, but she's taking the attack and clinging onto the hole. Do you know how fucking the degree of difficulty is at this point? It's not even that she just has to endure. She now has to endure and hold on. She now has to go against that force and use her raw strength to protect herself from this attack so she doesn't fall to the mainland. She fucking holds it down, endures the full force of the attack, and continues hanging on. She then has still enough power to talk shit, say, "Hey, you brats." As the fodder around says, "Holy shit, she's not getting blasted down." Make your choice. You can select your fate, you'll suffer. The moment I deflect this back at you, you can give me 50 years of your lifespan, or you can keep it and serve me, life or slavery. Talking shit, absolute confidence she's gonna walk through this fucking attack. Starts taking the souls from these guys. The lifespan's being taken from Law's crew now. She's still holding firm, taking this whole attack. Law then has to use Reroom, which is his like Coruscant ability, which makes everything silent to stop Big Mom's voice from taking their lifespan. It's highlighted that neither Law or Kid are afraid. They're not losing any lifespan. But regardless, we move on to this Misery scene where Law cuts through Misery. You remember, I just showed you guys, Misery was getting prepared to attack Law. She was running toward Law. Then Kid used Damn Punk. At that moment, you can clearly see that Misery completely diverts her attention to being worried about Big Mom. She starts looking at Big Mom, then even says, "I'll save you, Big Mom." Starts rushing toward Big Mom to save her, and then that's when Law turns around and cuts her. So not even this is an on-guard feat, which is hilarious. She no longer has the influence to take souls. She no longer can save herself. Damn Punk is used again. I mean, it's a continuous attack, but he just resolves himself to keep using it. No one can hear Big Mom. Misery gets cut, and she finally gets overpowered and sent into the hole. After clinging onto the hole the whole time and fucking sitting there and taking the brunt of all that damage after her body's already been weakened by the fucking Puncture Willie and all the other Duraneg attacks she's taken before this. This is why it's an insane feat. Even then, she's never knocked out. She prepares to try to cling on to another wall. This time, however, she punches into the wrong thing, and she punches into the bombs of the Flame Spirit. The bombs of the Flame Spirit were coated in ice by Yamato so they could be protected, but Big Mom broke through that ice from Yamato with her fist and exploded one of the bombs. That bomb exploded, which blew the bottom off the island, so she takes all the fucking Duraneg damage from Law, all the fucking damage when her body's in a weakened state from Kid with the heavy force, and then now the electromagnetic attack, then takes a fucking explosion. She was still conscious as she was falling, and this was falling into the fucking magma. That's what it takes to wring her out. That's what it takes. It's not even arguable like that there's some people that believe that Law or Kid individually could beat Big Mom. Not even fucking conceivable. Like literally no fucking chance in hell. You've seen me come to this. They don't even have like one definitive stand-on relativity feat. Now, being fair to both sides, I will say that the damage incurred on the rooftop, as I made mention of at least Law's damage, is going to be much more hard-hitting to Law and Kid, who have much lesser endurance and much lesser durability than the likes of Big Mom. They also had the early struggles and problems, like Kid having to deal with Hawkins and Killer's damage internally, hurting him and nerfing him and allowing him to take clean shots that he didn't need to take necessarily. Big Mom wouldn't necessarily have the other souls around her to potentially heal her bones of like fodder people or potentially create other homies. So you have to factor all that in. The way that I come to my conclusion is that there's a constant in One Piece where despite how much damage you take, your AP does not seem to change. Even with the likes of like Zoro on the rooftop, he just got the double Yonko attack, just slams into him. Took the most damage probably ever in the series. Ton of broken bones. He still is able to uncork Ashura and cliff any feat that he had shown prior. Luffy and Katakuri both take fatal wounds in the Luffy fight. In that fight in WCI, yet they continue to progress and get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger as the battle continues. It's the same thing here. The premise is they went all out even before they got defeated the second time. They were giving it everything they had, and they don't have anything further to show us. This is all they had. And those attacks, everything they had, their trump card attacks, all landed clean. Okay, they all landed clean on Big Mom. You're never going to get a better scenario than that. All those perfectly convenient circumstantial moments where she's just not paying attention or battle IQ's low, whatever the case, still weren't enough to put her down. And then you still have to rely on the firebomb. You still have to rely on the magma. You still have to rely on the hole in the island. Do you see where I'm coming from with this conclusion? So in my mind, because of Big Mom's battle IQ problems, I still have to call this a high diff, but I would have her comfortably winning high diff, and I'll leave it at that.